Some secrets do not stay buried forever. And in Dutton Ranch episode 3, Rip may finally realize that hiding Wes's body was the biggest mistake he could have made. Because now the sheriff is officially investigating the disappearance, Beulah Jackson is quietly pulling strings behind the scenes, and every clue somehow seems to be leading directly toward Rip himself. But the most dangerous part is that Rip still does not know who saw him that night. One small mistake could destroy everything Beth and Rip built together. And honestly, after everything teased in the episode 3 trailer, it feels like the war between the Dutton Ranch and the Jackson family is about to become much darker and far more personal than anybody expected. The episode will probably begin with tension already growing across the ranch after Wes's disappearance officially becomes a police investigation. Even though Rip secretly moved Wes's body to protect the ranch, that decision may now slowly turn into the exact thing that puts him in danger. The biggest problem is that Rip touched the body, transported it, and hid it in a place nobody can easily find. If the police somehow discover the truth later, it could immediately make Rip look guilty, even if he never actually killed Wes. And honestly, that is exactly why the trailer feels so dangerous for him. At the same time, Beulah Jackson already seems suspicious of Beth and Rip. In episode 2, the show made it very clear that Beulah started looking deeper into their past after losing the ranch deal. That scene did not feel random at all. It felt like the writers were quietly setting up a much bigger conflict. Beulah is not the kind of person who forgets humiliation easily. Losing the ranch clearly embarrassed her family, especially after Beth outsmarted them during the negotiation. Now Wes's disappearance may become the perfect opportunity for Beulah to strike back against the Dutton Ranch without directly starting a war herself. The trailer scene where Beulah speaks with the sheriff feels extremely important because it suggests that she may already be influencing the investigation behind closed doors. And honestly, the sheriff does not look like somebody who would refuse pressure from a powerful family like the Jacksons. Wes's wife already filed the missing persons report, which means law enforcement now needs answers quickly. The longer Wes stays missing, the more desperate the investigation becomes. And in small towns like this, powerful families usually control far more than people realize. That is why Rip may suddenly find himself becoming the easiest suspect. Everybody already knows Rip has a violent reputation. Even back in Yellowstone, Rip was feared because of how far he would go to protect the ranch. People know he handles problems in brutal ways. So if somebody wanted to build a believable story around Wes disappearing, blaming Rip would actually make sense to outsiders. Beulah probably understands this very well. She does not even need proof immediately. All she needs is enough suspicion to make law enforcement focus on Rip first. And honestly, there may already be one witness who unknowingly holds the key to everything. The trailer strongly hints that Zechariah saw Rip leaving the ranch late at night. When Rip secretly drove Wes's body to the abandoned quarry-like mineshaft, the camera focused very carefully on him sneaking away. Shows usually do that for a reason. It almost felt like the series was silently telling viewers that somebody noticed him. Zechariah being awake during that moment suddenly feels incredibly important now. That may explain why Rip becomes so aggressive toward him in the trailer. The scene where Rip forces Zechariah onto his knees at gunpoint feels shocking, but there is probably much more happening underneath that moment. Rip likely is not trying to kill him. Instead, Rip may be testing whether Zechariah can truly be trusted. Loyalty has always been the most important thing to Rip. He does not forgive betrayal, and he definitely does not tolerate weakness when danger starts getting close to the ranch. But the situation becomes even more complicated because Zechariah already has a troubled past. Since he spent time in prison before arriving at the ranch, Rip may fear that pressure from police could easily break him. If investigators start asking questions, Zechariah could panic and accidentally reveal something suspicious about that night. Even a small detail like seeing Rip leave in the truck could become enough for the sheriff to start watching Rip more carefully. The line Rip says in the trailer feels especially intense because it sounds less like a threat and more like a warning. When Rip tells Zechariah, "Your prayers better not be for show or I'll shoot you myself," it almost feels like Rip is trying to figure out whether Zechariah is truly honest or secretly hiding fear. Rip understands people extremely well. He knows nervous people make mistakes. And right now, mistakes are the one thing he cannot afford. Meanwhile, Beth may slowly realize that the situation is becoming far worse than Rip admits. Beth knows Rip better than anybody else, and she can usually tell when he is hiding something emotionally. Even if Rip refuses to explain exactly what happened with Wes's body, Beth will probably sense that something is deeply wrong. The pressure on Rip is likely growing every hour, especially once police officially begin asking questions around town. But honestly, the most dangerous thing may not even be the investigation itself. The real danger is that Wes probably discovered something huge before he died. Episode 2 kept repeatedly reminding viewers that the ranch sits extremely close to the Mexico border. That detail feels far too important to ignore. There is likely a massive illegal operation happening behind the scenes involving smuggling, land corruption, illegal cattle movement, or even weapons trafficking. Wes somehow learned the truth, and Rob Will panicked and killed him before the secret could spread further. Now the problem is that Rip unknowingly inserted himself directly into that situation by hiding the body. He probably believed he was protecting Beth, Carter, and the ranch from chaos, but instead, he may have accidentally stepped into the middle of a dangerous criminal operation much bigger than he realizes. And if the Jackson family truly is connected to those illegal activities somehow, then Rip is not just fighting a murder investigation anymore. He may now be fighting people who will do absolutely anything to protect their secrets. At the same time, Carter's growing relationship with Oriana may quietly become another huge problem developing underneath the main story. Carter finally feels like somebody genuinely cares about him, and Oriana clearly enjoys being around him too. But Carter still has no idea who her family truly is. Once Beth discovers that Oriana belongs to the Jackson family, she will probably immediately try separating them. Beth has always been extremely protective of Carter, especially after everything he already suffered through. But what makes the situation interesting is that Oriana may not fully support her own family's darker side. Unlike Beulah and Rob Will, Oriana seems calmer and far more emotionally conflicted. There is a strong possibility that she slowly becomes trapped between both worlds. If she starts developing real feelings for Carter, she may eventually be forced to choose between protecting her family or exposing dangerous truths connected to Wes's murder. And honestly, that could become the biggest twist later in the season. Because if Carter accidentally learns information through Oriana, he may unknowingly place himself directly in danger too. Right now, it feels like everybody around the ranch is slowly getting pulled into the same storm. Rip is becoming the main suspect. Beth is starting to sense disaster coming. Zechariah may know more than he should, and the Jackson family appears to be preparing for war, quietly in the shadows. And the scariest part is that episode 3 may only be the beginning of something much bigger. One of the biggest things episode 3 will probably focus on is the growing pressure slowly crushing Rip from every direction. At first, Rip may try acting normal around the ranch like nothing has changed, but deep down, he likely understands that the situation is already spinning out of control. The problem with secrets like this is that the longer they stay hidden, the more dangerous they become. And Rip knows that better than anybody. Back in Yellowstone, he survived countless violent situations because he always stayed one step ahead of his enemies. But this time feels different, because he is reacting emotionally instead of strategically. Hiding Wes's body was not part of a smart plan. It was a desperate decision made in the middle of chaos. And honestly, that desperation may become the exact thing that exposes him. The trailer strongly suggests that law enforcement starts asking questions much faster than Rip expected. Wes was not just some random man who disappeared without connections. He had family, people who cared about him, and now a powerful investigation is forming around his disappearance. The sheriff may initially treat the case like a normal missing persons report, but Beulah Jackson will almost certainly make sure it becomes something much bigger. She already lost the ranch deal to Beth and Rip, and now she suddenly has an opportunity to damage them publicly without dirtying her own hands. That is why the scene between Beulah and the sheriff feels incredibly suspicious. Beulah does not seem emotional while discussing Wes. Instead, she looks calm, controlled, and almost calculating. That usually means she is already thinking several moves ahead. She probably understands that proving Rip guilty immediately is impossible without evidence, but she may not need evidence yet. Sometimes suspicion alone is enough to destroy somebody's reputation in a small town. Once rumors begin spreading that Rip was somehow involved in Wes's disappearance, people around town may slowly begin looking at the Dutton Ranch differently. And honestly, Rip's past makes the situation even worse. Everybody knows Rip has handled violent situations before. His reputation alone makes him dangerous in the eyes of outsiders. Even if people cannot prove he killed Wes, many will still believe he is capable of it. That is why Beulah may quietly encourage the sheriff to focus on Rip first. The more pressure placed on him, the more likely he becomes to make another mistake. At the same time, Beth may begin noticing small cracks forming in Rip emotionally. One thing the show has always done well is showing how deeply Beth understands Rip without him needing to explain anything. She notices changes in his behavior immediately. If Rip starts becoming quieter, more aggressive, or more distracted, Beth will know something serious happened. And honestly, the trailer already hints that Beth may soon realize they are both walking into danger. There is also the possibility that Beth starts investigating the situation herself secretly. Beth has never trusted powerful families like the Jacksons, especially after losing the ranch deal to them earlier. She probably already senses that Beulah is planning something behind the scenes. If Beth begins connecting the investigation with the Jackson family's sudden interest in Rip, she may realize that somebody is intentionally trying to push suspicion toward them. But while Beth focuses on the external threat, Rip may be far more worried about what is happening inside the ranch itself. The biggest wildcard right now is definitely Zechariah. The trailer scene between him and Rip feels way too intense to be random. Rip pointing a gun at him while forcing him to kneel suggests that something happened between them before that moment. Most likely, Zechariah confronted Rip privately after realizing he left the ranch late that night. Even if Zechariah does not know the full truth, he probably knows enough to make Rip nervous. And the problem is that Rip has trouble trusting people quickly, especially people with criminal histories. Zechariah's prison past may become extremely important in episode 3 because Rip likely fears that police pressure could break him mentally. If investigators question everybody working around the ranch, Zechariah might accidentally reveal suspicious details without realizing how dangerous they are. Even something simple like mentioning Rip leaving late at night could completely change the investigation. That may explain why Rip chooses intimidation instead of honesty. Rip probably believes fear keeps people loyal. That mindset protected the Yellowstone Ranch for years, but Dutton Ranch seems to be showing a different side of Rip now. Instead of being fully in control, he feels more unstable and emotionally overwhelmed. The pressure of protecting Beth, Carter, and the ranch may finally be pushing him toward dangerous decisions. And honestly, the saddest part is that Rip likely believes he is doing all of this for the people he loves. Meanwhile, another huge storyline may quietly begin expanding through Carter and Oriana's relationship. Their connection feels much deeper than a simple side romance. The writers are clearly using them to build tension between both families. Carter finally found somebody who makes him feel understood, while Oriana seems tired of the cold environment surrounding her own family. Unlike Beulah and Rob Will, Oriana appears more compassionate and emotionally conflicted. That could become very important later. There is a strong possibility that Oriana slowly starts noticing suspicious behavior within her own family regarding Wes's disappearance. She may overhear conversations, notice hidden panic, or realize that Rob Will is hiding something much darker than she first believed. If that happens, Oriana could become trapped between protecting her family and protecting Carter. And honestly, Carter may unknowingly become the person who changes everything, because Carter has always been emotionally honest. Unlike Beth or Rip, he does not think strategically. He follows his heart first. If he learns dangerous information through Oriana later in the season, he may accidentally expose secrets without understanding the consequences. That could place both of them directly in danger. At the same time, episode 3 may finally start revealing what Wes discovered before his death. The show keeps dropping subtle hints about illegal operations happening near the border. That detail cannot be accidental anymore. There is probably a much larger criminal network operating around the ranch, and Wes somehow got too close to the truth. Rob Will killing him felt impulsive, almost panicked, which suggests Wes discovered information that could destroy somebody powerful. The biggest question now is whether the Jackson family is directly involved in those illegal activities or simply connected to the wrong people. If Beulah truly controls parts of the town politically, then it becomes much easier to hide illegal operations quietly. Corrupt sheriffs, missing evidence, manipulated investigations, all of that suddenly becomes possible. And honestly, that may explain why Beulah seems more focused on controlling the narrative than actually finding Wes. Because if the truth about Wes's death comes out completely, it may not only destroy Rip, it could destroy the Jackson family too. By the end of episode 3, it feels very likely that Rip will realize somebody is actively building a case against him behind the scenes. The pressure from police will grow stronger, Beth will begin sensing hidden danger, and Zechariah may become increasingly nervous about what he witnessed. At the same time, Carter and Oriana's relationship will quietly deepen while dangerous secrets slowly move closer to the surface. And honestly, the scariest part is that Rip still does not fully understand who he is really fighting yet. Because this no longer feels like a simple murder investigation anymore. It feels like the beginning of an all-out war involving powerful families, hidden criminal operations, betrayal, and survival. And if Rip becomes desperate enough, he may start making choices that push him even further into darkness than ever before. As episode 3 continues, the investigation into Wes's disappearance will probably start becoming much more aggressive. And honestly, that is where the real pressure on Rip may finally explode. Up until now, Rip has mostly been dealing with fear internally, trying to keep everything under control while pretending life around the ranch is still normal. But once police begin officially questioning people connected to the ranch, the situation could quickly become impossible to hide from Beth and the others anymore. The sheriff already seems suspicious in the trailer, but what makes the situation dangerous is that he may secretly already believe Rip is involved before having any evidence. That is usually how powerful families like the Jacksons operate. They influence the direction of suspicion first, then allow the investigation to slowly build around that narrative afterward. Beulah probably understands that if enough people begin viewing Rip as dangerous, eventually somebody will come forward with information that appears to support the story. And honestly, Rip's personality may accidentally help that happen. Rip has never been good at appearing innocent. He carries anger naturally, and when people accuse him of something, he usually responds with intimidation instead of calm explanations. That behavior worked back in Yellowstone because fear protected the ranch. But in this situation, every angry reaction may only make him look guiltier to investigators. If the sheriff pushes Rip emotionally during questioning, Rip could easily lose control for even a few seconds. And honestly, that may be exactly what Beulah wants. At the same time, Beth will probably start becoming far more involved once she realizes how serious the investigation has become. Beth has always been incredibly protective of Rip, especially when outsiders try to threaten him. The moment she senses somebody is trying to frame him intentionally, she may immediately begin fighting back. But the dangerous part is that Beth usually attacks problems directly and emotionally, which could accidentally make things even worse. The trailer already hints that Beth and Beulah may slowly begin a psychological war against each other. And honestly, that conflict feels just as dangerous as the murder investigation itself. Both women are extremely intelligent, emotionally ruthless, and deeply protective of their families. The difference is that Beth fights openly, while Beulah seems to prefer manipulation behind closed doors. That contrast may create some of the most intense moments in the series moving forward. There is also a strong possibility that Beth begins researching Wes privately herself. Beth is smart enough to realize that understanding why Wes died could reveal who is truly responsible. If she starts digging into Wes's recent activities before his disappearance, she may uncover clues connected to the illegal business happening near the border. And honestly, that could completely change everything. Because the more the show hints about smuggling and corruption, the clearer it becomes that Wes was not murdered over something small.